Welcome to English 4E. This is Term 2A, and we are on Class 1. Today we're going to be talking about the study guide and the very first assignment. This is my first time this year teaching it, so if you've been working on the course independently, this is a great time to tune in and listen to what all is going on. Here are all the different ways to reach me. You can call me in the studio while I'm teaching, 1-800-465-7144. Some people tune in by radio, 91.9 FM. There is also a television channel, Bell Express View, channel 972. You can also log in during Zoom. If you want to reach me after I'm finished teaching, my office hours during term 2A are from 10 to 1:30 and then from 4 to 6. You can fax your work in at 1-800-463-7852. You can also email me, jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. This is probably the best way to reach me if you're just trying to ask me a question about an assignment. I do check Facebook from time to time, but it is not something I check constantly throughout the day. Capital G, capital P, ERCY space, capital W, AHSA. Now, normally if I had taught this course before in this term, I would have a playlist already posted on my YouTube. This is my first time though, so if you miss an assignment or miss a class, you can always recheck it on YouTube. And again, same name as Facebook, capital G, capital P, ERCY space, capital W, AHSA. So if you are handing in work, send it to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. If you hand it in to me directly, I have to send it through there anyways, because the secretary has to log absolutely everything to show that we've received it. That way, if there is a teacher change or if there's any kind of question later on as to whether something had gotten handed in or not, she could check her logbook as well as my logbook. When you do that, always include your full name, the course name, the assignment number, and the name. I teach about 4 different courses, so it's really important to not just put assignment 1, but assignment 1, ENG 4E, so I know which one I'm looking for. If an assignment asks you to hand in a rough and a good draft, please always label them so that I know which one I'm marking. I know when you've been working on it, it probably seems really obvious, but it isn't always obvious on my end, okay? I've already told you my office hours. The class will post from 10 to 11:50, Monday to Thursday. Friday, there's no class. Again, you're welcome to call me at any point to talk about things. Today's work. Today, we're going to review the study guide and do an overview of the course. Understand the different ways to contact me, which we kind of just did. Understand where to submit your work. Ensure that you have all the materials needed to complete the course. Understand the marking scheme for the course grade. Examine the marking criteria for the report card. Review the basic parts of speech, and then we make sure you understand how to complete key question number 1. So your study guide will look like that. There's this cute little graphic of 3 people talking. I put here a picture of the book that we read called Where the Rivers Meet. If there is any chance that you did not receive this book, please let me know. Now, it won't stop you from doing Unit 1, because Unit 1 is almost entirely grammar exercises, but you will need it for Unit 2, because Unit 2 is almost entirely a book study. So if for some reason you didn't get it, give us a phone call so we can send it up to you. English 4E is a full credit course that will give you the opportunity to develop practical written and oral communication skills needed, especially for today's workplace. I already went over my office hours. Yep. And again, if you can call in to participate, that's great. WASA office, fax number, all through those. If you didn't receive your course materials, I can also ship those up. Some people prefer to have digital copies. If that's the case, just email me. My boss is fine with that. He doesn't mind me sending you guys up the digital copies. For some people who are really just prefer to use their computer, that works really well. Keep in mind, though, if an assignment asks for it to be handwritten, you do still need to handwrite it, okay? So you should have units 1 to 4, plus the book on Where the Rivers Meet. The unit assignments. All the assignments you do in units 1 to 4, I total them, and 70% of them, 70% of whatever mark you get, is part of your final grade. Then there's a culminating activity That happens in the very end of Unit 4. That part is worth 10% of your total grade. And then there is a final exam that is worth 20% of your overall grade. Altogether, that adds up to 100%. Occasionally, I may have students that are in a place where it's difficult to find someone to supervise the exam. You may not have a learning center where you are. You may be kind of out here in Sioux Lookout where you're not really close to a school. If you are in that situation, please let me know, as we are often able to help. Sometimes we can help find somebody to supervise. Sometimes like the principal at the local elementary school is willing to help out. Other times I can give you an alternative assessment that isn't like a timed exam. So again, if that's an issue for you, or if you're worried it's going to be an issue, just send me a little message and we can start working things out now. That's fine. Okay, so here is a quick course outline. Unit 1 is Elements of Written Communication. Unit 2 is Understanding Literature in the Media. Unit 3, Forms of Communication and Success in the Workplace. Unit 4, Planning to Enter the Workforce. And then there's a course review and the final exam. Okay, one of the things that I find really interesting with this particular course is that every unit has a very completely different focus. So Unit 1 is focused very intensely on parts of speech, crafting a good sentence, beginning to use good paragraph structure. There are a lot of short, quick assignments. Unit 2, its big focus is the novel Where the Rivers Meet. There are questions to answer about each chapter. There are reflection pieces that you write your thoughts about chapters that you select. And just like always, there's a culminating assignment as well. Unit 3 is really focused on business writing, things like resumes, cover letters, those kind of things. Unit 4 focuses on writing that will help you get a job. Oh, wait, I got mixed up there. Filling out job applications, cover letters, resumes, and practice answering interview questions. This is a fairly short unit, but the assignments are all big, by which I mean they are going to require some time, but also they're worth more marks than some of the tiny little assignments we do in Unit 1. The culminating activity for the entire course is where you put together a portfolio of your work that will help you get a job. And I know some of you may already have a job that you're very happy with, but this is just, it's intended to be a writing course that helps people do well with looking for jobs. So that's kind of a major part of the government guidelines for this course. Okay, learning skills and work habits. If you are younger, you've probably seen this on all your report cards. If you're older like me, this was not something that was necessarily on our report cards. Even in the high school, I have to make a quick little comment on these learning skills. It does not affect your grade. You could probably get like needs improvement for every single one of those and still pass the course. It is just something though, sometimes if you're not sure, hey, why am I not doing so great? Check out the learning skills. Sometimes you may see one that really stands out as, oh yeah, if I was better at this, maybe I'd be doing better at my coursework. But anyways, just so you know why it's there and why it will be on your final report card. So responsibility, this is the biggest one for independent learning. If you don't have a strong sense of responsibility, it's going to be very hard to get through this course. So for responsibility, the student fulfills their responsibilities and commitments within the learning environment. They complete and submit classwork, homework, and assignments according to agreed upon timelines, and they take responsibility for and manage their own behaviors. Organization. The student devises and follows a plan and process for completing work and tasks. They establish priorities and manage their time to complete tasks and achieve goals. They identify, gather, evaluate, and use information, technology, and resources to complete tasks. Again, that's a huge one for doing independent learning. It's not one I can really help you with, although if you feel like that's what you want help with, by all means, call me up. I can try and help you establish priorities if you want me to. Independent work. The student is going to independently monitor, assess, and revise plans to complete the tasks and meet goals. Use your class time appropriately to meet class, to complete tasks, and follow instructions with minimal supervision. Now, you are always throughout this course welcome to call me and say, hey, I didn't quite understand the assignment, or I don't understand this particular one question, or I thought I got it, but then when you marked it, I didn't do very well, but I don't understand why. I have no problem explaining any of those things, and I don't feel that it counts against independent work. To me, that's one that kind of is more appropriate for a classroom environment where some kids really kind of want you to sit down with them and walk them through every step. Obviously, at this stage in the game, we're kind of past that. I don't really worry about it. Most of people that I am working with are extremely independent. Collaboration. This is the one learning skill that I don't feel is a huge part of these online courses, right? In class, you might do a lot of group assignments. Here, we really don't. If you were in class, they would want you to do a fair share of the work, respond positively to others. Those things would be valid if I had a bunch of students kind of talking at the same time. Like if somebody shows up for Zoom and other people want to share their ideas, taking a break from talking and making sure that people have a chance to share their ideas would be a healthy thing. Otherwise, that one is not quite as crucial for us as it might be for a regular classroom. Initiative. Well, again, anybody who's taking this course is almost certainly showing initiative, right? Because you don't have to, this is voluntary. The student looks for and acts on new ideas and opportunities for learning. They demonstrate the capacity for innovation and a willingness to take risks. They demonstrate curiosity and an interest in learning. They approach new tasks with a positive attitude, and they recognize and advocate appropriately for the rights of self and others. Self-regulation. And again, this one is really, to me, far more an issue in a regular classroom. Okay. Set your own individual goals and monitor your progress towards achieving them. Seeks clarification or assistance when needed. Assesses and reflects critically on your own strengths, needs, and interests. Identifies learning opportunities, choices, and strategies to meet personal needs and achieve goals, perseveres, and makes an effort when responding to challenges. The one issue where this would come up is, again, if you were on Zoom, we would want to use appropriate language. If you're giving me a phone call and you're upset about something, again, you can still state you're upset in a very calm manner and using polite words, right? I certainly am capable of making mistakes. And if you're unhappy with a mark, or feel like I was unfair about something, by all means, call me and talk to me and we can try and work things out, okay? Now, this is the government achievement chart that applies all over Ontario to any grade 11 and grade 12 course. By nature, this is very general and very broad because it's meant to apply to all sorts of assignments. This generally is the kind of thing I'm looking for when I'm marking your assignments. Sometimes I'll have a very specific rubric or a very specific marking scheme, but I always share that with you. Okay, so the big category is knowledge and understanding. So things we're looking for are a knowledge of the forms, or what we sometimes call formats, of the texts. Like a novel has a different format from a play, essays, poems. Also conventions, which is going things like punctuation, spelling, capitalization, terminology, and strategies for reading and writing. That's a huge one, right? Understanding information, ideas, concepts, and themes. A lot of times I might ask you to read an article and then explain what's going on in the article. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for, right? Understanding of relationships among facts, ideas, concepts, and themes. This is where we're making connections, connections to your own life, connections between several characters, connections between one book and another book, that kind of thing. And then finally, understanding of the uses and effect of rhetorical elements. Rhetorical is kind of a fancy word. It just means like the stylistic devices or your voice in literary and informational texts. Now, you can see up top, level 1 is a 50 to 59%. Level 2 is a 60 to 69%. Level 3, which corresponds to like about a B, is a 70 to 79%. And then level 4 is 80 to 100%. And it's pretty consistent. If you're in 50 to 59, you've demonstrated a limited knowledge. If you're in 60 to 69, you've demonstrated some knowledge. 70 to 79, you've generated a considerable amount of knowledge. There may be some mistakes or more errors, but if you're hitting this, it means you've done what I would normally expect a student to be capable of at this level. 80 to 100% is it's extra thorough, very insightful. You may write above and beyond what I expected. Your style, your writing skill may be above what I would expect for this grade 12 course. So those are the kind of things we're looking for. This is only one category. The next category is thinking and inquiry. The first part is called critical and creative thinking skills. And I kind of wanted to separate those two briefly. Critical skills is where you would be like reading a text, looking at it, examining it, analyzing it, explaining it. Creative thinking skills would be if I said, hey, can you please write an opinion essay on this particular topic? That's where you would be using your creative skills and brainstorming and thinking of how to explain things. So they kind of go hand in hand, but they are slightly different. Also, inquiry skills. Inquiry skills is like if you're doing research projects, your ability to formulate questions, to plan out the project, to select strategies and resources, to analyze and interpret what you read, to assess information, to form conclusions. Almost all the English courses have at least one, usually more, research assignments. That's the kind of thing that I would be looking for these kind of skills in a research project. Okay, communication. Obviously, in English, we're checking your communication skills. What is your communication of information and ideas through your logical organization and clarity? Clarity just means, are your ideas clear? Is your teacher able to understand what you mean? Okay. Doesn't mean that you necessarily use the fanciest words or that your punctuation or your spelling is all correct. For this part, I'm just looking for, do I understand the ideas you're trying to communicate? Okay. Some people, that's a hard thing. Some people, that's very an easy part. Just really depends. And then communication continued. And here is where can you gear your communication to different audiences, right? If you're writing to me as your teacher, you're going to write differently than you might write to your boss, or then you might write to somebody who's struggling with alcohol addiction, or somebody who's a child, or to your Google, right? Audience changes how you communicate. And also your purpose, right? Whether you're entertaining, you're informing, you're trying to persuade somebody, those things can also affect how you communicate your ideas. And then the use of various forms of communication. This kind of goes back to the format question in knowledge, whereas knowledge is kind of like, do you understand it? And this is kind of more, can you use it to communicate your ideas? So the one is more reading based to me, and this one is kind of more writing based, I would say. And then finally, application. Application, the big idea is just sometimes people can understand something like they could tell me the definition of a noun, for example, but then they couldn't find nouns in their writing or they forget to use nouns when they're writing a sentence. So here is where are you able to apply in your own reading and writing the things that you know? So first, we're looking for the application of required language conventions. Conventions is kind of a short form term for grammar, usage, spelling, and punctuation. And then the application of oral communication and media conventions and techniques. This particular course does have an oral component near the end where you've got to like call me and leave some phone messages and stuff. And there are some media components as well. Application of reading strategies. Now, again, if you are younger, they probably talked about reading strategies all the time in school. If you're a little bit older like me, you might not have heard this phrase before. And it talks about different strategies that are sort of how we think about reading, which we will talk about during the course, but it's things like rereading to identify specific information, scanning, using cues from the context, that kind of stuff. Application of the writing process. We're going to talk about the specific steps of the writing process. I do expect you to use them, and you will get lower marks if you don't use them. Application of technology. For the most part, that is not a huge part of most assignments. Sometimes they may ask you to use an alternative software project. I'm trying to think if there is in this course. There is in some of my courses. It's a medium thing, right? Not a huge part I'm looking for. And then making connections between English and other subjects, between English and the world outside the world, and between experiences and text. So that goes back to the idea of um, being able to apply what you're reading to the real world. This is the last page in the study guide. It basically just lays out the overview of the course and the overall marking scheme. If there's any questions about what's covered here, please just send me an email. I'd be happy to clarify everything. And you can see they didn't put the hang on, the marking scheme above every single part because it's like several pages, but it's the same thing. This is your D, here's your C, here's your B, here's your A. Okay, so that's the end of the study guide. Now we're looking at Unit 1. So if you have Unit 1 in front of you, Unit 1 has the picture of the person and they're leaning over their notebook and they're writing down some ideas. And it should say Unit 1, elements of written communication. It also has contact information for me right there if you need to. This unit focuses on the basics, the very building blocks of writing, understanding and identifying parts of speech, understanding and identifying parts of a sentence, which is a little bit different. Knowing how to write simple, compound, and complex sentences, understanding and applying a subject and verb agreement, being able to write sentences, and being able to write paragraphs. Here is the table of contents. There's a course overview. It shows you the course contents, evaluation, materials required, culminating activities. That's kind of what we covered in study guide, but they repeat it again here. And then here's Unit 1. They organize things by activities, but an activity might include like 3 or 4 different assignments. So it's kind of the idea of here's a bunch of assignments that are on the same concept. When you are handing stuff in, you can hand in one assignment or an entire activity that has 4 or 5 assignments. That's fine, okay? This is just kind of organizing the assignments for the teacher and for the student. So the first part is looking at communication and the terms. That's where we're going to talk about parts of speech. Using modifiers. Modifiers are adjectives and adverbs. Clause, we'll be talking about that. Participles, semicolon, synonyms, antonyms, and homonyms. Activity 7, writing good sentences, and then writing a short story, which I think is kind of a challenging thing. If you want to, you could always look ahead on that one and just get a quick idea of what you're doing. If you feel like writing takes you a long time, you may want extra time to work on that. And then there's a Unit 1 checklist to make sure everything's done. Usually these assignments are called key questions, and they often have a bunch of explanation before the question. And sometimes that's confusing for people because it looks like the way that things are organized, like the material after the key questions should be explaining it, but it's not. It's right before. So that's super important to notice if you're trying to understand how to do an assignment. Don't look at what comes after, look at what comes before. I will go really in depth on these explanations in classes to make sure you're able to complete the assignment successfully. And like I said, if you're still confused, give me a phone call. I'd be happy to talk to you and walk you through stuff. Okay. Welcome to English Grade 12 Workplace Preparation. This full credit course emphasizes the consolidation of literacy, communication, and creative and critical thinking skills necessary for success in the workplace and in daily life. You will analyze informational, graphic, and literary texts and create oral, written, and media texts in a variety of forms for workplace-related and practical purposes. An important focus will be on using language accurately and organizing ideas and information coherently. Coherently means like clearly. The course is intended to prepare you for workplace and active citizenship. By citizenship, they mean you can read a newspaper, understand what's being said by politicians, uh, be able to vote, all those kinds of things. 4 units, which we've already talked about. In order to get a credit in this course, you must successfully complete the key questions for each unit within the required time frame, which for us is, I think, June 13th, and complete a final exam. I do beg you, please don't wait to June 13th to hand everything in because I only have about a week there And if all 23 students wait till then to hand things in, I will have not enough time to get things marked and get the report cards back to you. Um, Same as my other courses, the unit work is 70%, the culminating activity is 10%, and the exam is worth 20%. As mentioned before, Where the Rivers Meet is our novel. These culminating activities are an essential component of the course, and every unit has at least one. And there's one overall one for the whole course. Each activity will be based on the unit topic and will reflect upon important ideas and concepts covered. Okay, unit one, and then we're going to go right into activity one. Um, with this unit, you will understand the importance of effective writing, especially as it applies to the workplace. You will complete a variety of assignments pertaining to the parts of speech, spelling, grammar, and punctuation into individual sentences and whole paragraphs. The writing process will also be examined and how to use it in producing good quality pieces of writing. Then for a culminating activity, you're going to write a short story. Activity one is communication and writing. The whole activity, not every assignment, is worth 40 marks. A knowledge understanding of the following terms and their usage is very important when it comes to being able to effectively communicate in writing. Elements of grammar, or the rules of writing proper sentences, will be applied and assessed throughout the entire course. So the parts of speech are types or categories or even like jobs of words that can be identified and serve a purpose in sentences. One thing to keep in mind, some words can do more than one job in a sentence. So like if I said run, run could mean, hey, I'm running, which is a verb, or it could be there's a 5K run downtown, in which case at that point it's being used more as a noun because it's describing the race or naming the race, I guess. Noun is the name of a person, place, thing, or idea. There are two kinds. Common noun is things like girl or town, and a proper noun is things like Maria, Pickle Lake. Proper just means it's their official name. So it'll have a capital at the very beginning. Here are some more examples. Persons, sister, Mr. Green, principal, nurse, and students. Place, Sioux Lookout, bridge, river, downtown, mountain, a country. Things or objects, pencil, table, phone, stove, tree. Ideas and concepts. These are the ones that are really hard to spot because you can't touch them. They're what's sometimes called abstract nouns. Freedom, hatred, government, independence, love. Basically, it's the name of an idea. So you can't touch it, you can't feel it, but it's describing an overall concept. And that's the name when we use the word love in a sentence, like I love something, we're naming a feeling or a concept, and we assume that the other person understands it, right? Okay. Nouns can be anywhere in a sentence. They can be the subject of a sentence and perform an action like Nancy swam. They can be an object in the sentence and receive the action. He threw the ball. Nouns can also perform other jobs, but we'll go more into those later. Many sentences will have more than one noun in them. Can you find the nouns in the sentences below? The leaves are falling from the tree in our yard. So we're looking for people, places, things, or ideas. I don't see any people. I do see one place. I would call the yard a place. Uh, Things I would call a leaf or leaves. Things, I'm just going to do underline, it'll be easier. Are falling from the tree. I would call a tree a thing. And I don't really see any concepts or ideas. Cars zoomed down the busy street. All right, is there place? Place is street. Don't see any people. Things would be cars. I don't see ideas or any other objects, I guess. The doctor said he would do the surgery at his office. So doctor obviously is a person. And then places. Well, his office is a place, right? And then things. I don't know if I would call surgery a thing. I guess the thing or an idea, either way. It's definitely a noun. When you see the right in front of it, it's kind of a clue that the next word's going to be a noun. The old haunted house at the top of the hill had lights shining through the windows. Okay, so people know places. I would call the house a place, but you could call it an object. It doesn't really matter, it doesn't change things. The hill, I would call a place. Some people might call top a place as well, right? All right. And then things. Lights are a thing. And then windows are a thing, right? And I didn't really see concepts. I feel like I should put a concept one here now. Um, let's see. How about this? Let me see. Da, da, da. Freedom is a key component in democracy. Okay. So I've actually got two ideas here. Freedom is your one idea, right? And then democracy is actually the name for another idea, right? The idea of how to do a certain kind of government. A component is like a part of. So you might call that a thing, or you might call that an idea too. It is, again, another noun. So these are the kind of nouns that I do find people sometimes find are hard. So something to keep an eye out when you're writing. Okay, a pronoun. That's a word that can take the place of a noun. Here are some examples. I, he, she, his, her, our, we, they, it. So for example, let's say you're writing a paragraph about a famous singer. You don't need to keep writing the singer's name in every single sentence. Sometimes you could just use the words he or she instead, or if they prefer other pronouns, they or whatever. So for example, Taylor Swift is immensely popular with all sorts of age groups. She is constantly in the public eye. So now there isn't an antecedent in this sentence. It's referring back to this sentence. So here's our pronoun, she, and it's referring back to the girl, Taylor Swift. Now, normally you try to keep the pronoun reasonably close to the antecedent. I wouldn't try and use that to go back like several sentences, for example. Um, Sometimes it's not always obvious who a pronoun is referring to. If I had talked about a whole bunch of female singers like Taylor Swift, Beyonce, my brain has gone dead on other female singers. Anyways, I couldn't just use the word she because somebody who read it wouldn't know who I was talking about. So it has to be obvious. Yeah. All right. Verbs. Verbs are words that express action of a kind or a being. For example, things like run, sing, laugh is, are, were. A participle is a word that is formed from a verb. So, for example, running, ran, singing, sang. Verbs can also express a condition or a state of being, often using the verb to be. Some examples would be words like am, are, is, has been, have been, had been, was, were. And they're often used when you're describing the condition of a noun in a sentence. For example, if I said, the little girl was cold and hungry, was is the verb, right? I'm just describing her state. I'm not really describing what she's doing. The street is deserted. So is the noun there. And I'm describing how the state of the street or the condition of the street. Sorry, wrong one. So these ones are sometimes tricky because they don't always stand out as an obvious noun. Okay. Adjectives. Adjective is a word that describes or modifies a noun. For example, we could have a formal report, a colorful brochure. Adjectives often come right before the noun they are describing. like in these examples. But sometimes they can come after the verb that shows the state of being, just like we saw on the last slide. So if I said the tree is strong and tall, I'm describing the tree with these words, strong, and then the word tall. Okay. Adjectives can tell you about the age, the size, the color, the origin, the material, number, quality, or opinion, the type, and the function of a person, place, thing, or idea. So there are so many adjectives. I don't even want to give you a list because there's way more than that I could possibly write down here. Adverbs. Adverbs are a word or a combination of words that can describe a verb. That's the definition we learn in school. However, they can also describe an adjective or another adverb. So some examples are things like carefully communicated, accurately summarize. Here, they're describing the verb. Adverbs can come in several different places in a sentence. It can come right before or right after the verb it is describing. And somehow I got the word if instead of it. My apologies. There we go. He suddenly fell. So here I've put the adverb right in front of the verb fell. Why is it not doing it? Sorry, hang on a second. There we go. She whispered quietly. Here I put the adverb afterwards. Now, I read somewhere that it's more common to put it in front, but I don't know if that's the case. I feel like they're both used pretty interchangeably. Both of them I would consider correct. I wouldn't consider one wrong and one right. Adverbs can also come right before an adjective or another adverb that it's describing. So if I said he was extremely careful, careful is your adjective. That's describing him what he's like. But I am also describing how careful he is. He's extremely careful, right? Mom very gently covered the baby with a blanket. So gently is talking about how she's covering something. So that's our adverb. Here, I'm describing how gently, very gently, right? So keep in mind that those can be adverbs as well. Prepositions. Prepositions are a word showing how a noun or a pronoun is related to another word in a sentence. Examples are words like on, under, over, beside, at, between, or near. Prepositions can show relationships of time, place, direction, agency, cause, measurement, instruments, or tools. So the army marched over the bridge. Over is a preposition, and it's connecting the word bridge to the rest of the sentence. She completed the painting with a palette knife. So I'm explaining how she did the painting. He wanted to buy a pound of butter. So here I'm connecting the word butter to the measurement, pound. There are also conjunctions. Conjunctions are words that join two or more words or groups of words, things like phrases, clauses, or sentences. Some examples are words like and, but, or, however, then, so, also. There are two main types of conjunctions. Coordinating conjunctions join two simple and complete sentences. Sometimes those are also called an independent clause. He loved going to the movie and he liked playing baseball. So and is your conjunction. They're joining words. He wanted to go shopping, but he was out of money. Here, we're joining these two words and explaining how they contrast. Subordinating conjunctions join one independent clause with what's called a dependent clause. A dependent clause has a subject and a verb, but it's incomplete. It doesn't make sense by itself. It can't stand alone. I would go to the movies if I had some money. So if is your subordinating conjunction. She liked the new boy, even though he was quiet. So even though is the conjunction phrase connecting the two sentences. So we are also going to talk about phrases and clauses here. You see, I'm just trying to see where I am as far as things go. Okay. I'm actually going to jump ahead and then I will come back there if I need to. Okay, hang on a second. Key question. The key question number one is going to be identifying the parts of speech. This is worth 5 marks. So what they want you to do is read the following paragraph and then identify what part of speech the underlined word is. For this, you can use lined paper or the computer for your responses. So here's the sentence. You don't have to tell me every single word, just the words we underlined. It was a sunny morning in late March when Terry and his friend Joe left Kingfisher Lake by snowmobile to travel to Wanneman Lake. They quickly covered the distance between the two communities and hurried to the home of Corey, an old buddy of theirs. Corey works as a filing clerk at the nursing station in Wanneman Lake and regularly writes memos and emails during the week. He also assists with developing monthly reports. Since this was a Sunday, however, they would have time to spend together. They talked and laughed for about 5 hours. Then Terry and Joe returned home, happy but exhausted. So here are the different parts of speech: nouns, pronouns, adjectives, verbs or participles, adverbs, prepositions, and conjunctions. We didn't really discuss interjections. None exist in this sentence, so don't worry about them for the sake of this particular assignment. For this question, please don't try and write the part of speech in the actual paragraph. It's going to get too crowded and hard for me to read. Instead, take a lined paper, list each underlined word down the side, and then write what part of speech it is next to it. So the first sentence in the unit looks like this. It was a sunny morning in late March when Terry and his friend Joe left Kingfisher Lake by snowmobile to travel to Winneman Lake. So I took every underlined word and I wrote it down the side, and then I would go through and write what type of part of speech it is. And if I'm not sure, I would just go back to the beginning of the unit because it explains those there. So sunny is describing the word morning, so it's an adjective. Morning is a noun. I guess it's a concept, right? The concept of morning, you can't really touch it, but it's not really a thing, place, or person. In late March. Okay, so March is a noun. That makes it pretty likely that late is at this point an adjective. Terry. Well, Terry's a person, so there is a noun. Terry and his friend. So what part of speech is his? His is a type of pronoun. It's called a possessive pronoun, which we'll talk more about later. Pronoun. And then the word friend is a noun. And I will leave the last two for you to do. So don't worry about rewriting the sentence. Just worry about this part where you list the words and tell me what type of speech it is. There are about 36 words in that paragraph to label with the correct part of speech. Again, if you're not sure which one it is, each type, take a look back at the definitions for the different parts of speech. And just, if you need to, just pick whichever one seems most likely. You don't have to be 100% sure in order to give an answer. Sometimes I find people are so nervous about getting everything right that even when they know it, they're nervous that they don't, and so they don't answer anything. It's always better to give me some sort of an answer because you've got a 1 in 8 chance it might be right no matter what, right? Hand it in right away once you're finished, because this will help me know how many students are actively doing the work in the course right now. Tomorrow, we're going to look at questions 2 and 3. Now, I'm going to slip back real quick and tackle the pages we didn't get to. I was afraid I'd run out of time. We did that. Okay, phrase. A phrase is just a group of words that serves as a single part of speech. It does not contain a subject and a verb. Using phrases effectively can clarify meaning and create variety in writing. So writing a proposal is not a whole sentence, it's just a phrase. Clause, a group of words that contains both a subject and a verb. Clauses are the building blocks of a sentence. There are 2 main types: a main, or what we sometimes call an independent clause. Main or independent clause. These ones could be a sentence all by itself. It has a subject and it has the verb. I'm going to add that to that. And has a subject and verb. Oops, verb. So subordinate clause. This is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb, but it doesn't make any sense on its own. It needs more information to be completed. So if I have the complex sentence, your order will arrive on Friday. That could be all by itself. It could be a main clause. If you place it today is a subordinate clause. The word if changes the meaning of that sentence. If you place it today, if I do what today, place what today. It doesn't make any sense without the other beginning of the sentence to add the extra information. Although he wanted to come to the concert, can that stand alone? Not really, right? It's not enough information. So it's a subordinate clause. He couldn't get the time off work. And that is your main clause. Remember that every clause has a subject, which can be a noun or a pronoun. Here, both times it's a pronoun. And then they have to have a verb. Here, he's got wanted, and you could also say that to come is a verb as well. I'm going to underline all of that. He couldn't get. All of that is your verb. All right. So it must have a subject and a verb. Okay, sentence types. That we kind of just referenced that, but anyways, a simple sentence has one main clause with a subject and predicate that expresses a complete thought. We just talked about that. A compound sentence has two or more main or independent clauses joined by a conjunction or by a semicolon. The conjunctions for compound sentences, there's only 7. For and nor, but, or, yet, and so. These are the only ones you can use for a compound sentence. Complex sentences have one main or independent clause and one subordinate clause joined by a subordinating conjunction. Now, there are all sorts of subordinate conjunctions, both individually and phrases. Some examples are things like if, though, even though, because, however, since, therefore. Now, they list one more here that I had not heard before. Compound complex. So it has two main clauses with one or more subordinate clauses. So these are fairly complicated. I'm not really going to worry about that or be looking for that in the writing unless the assignment specifically asks for it. I think we talked about this before, but we're going to do a quick little information on it. Sentence. A sentence is a group of words that expresses a complete thought and contains a subject and a verb. So the subject is who or what the sentence is about. Generally, it's a noun or a pronoun. Sometimes it could be a special kind of clause. The predicate is the verb plus all the words connected to the verb. So if I have the old man, man is my simple sentence, my simple subject. The old man is the whole subject. Walked carefully up the street, walked is my simple predicate or my verb. And the whole thing, walked carefully up the stairs, is the predicate. If I have the snowstorm, pretty obviously snowstorm is our subject. And then blanketed the ground in white swirls. The whole thing is the predicate. This is what part the verb is considered a verb, but it's also sometimes referred to as the simple predicate. So it has to have those. A lot of times they will be near the beginning. Not always, and we'll talk about that more later, but it's really, really a common sentence pattern in English. So this is where I would look first if I was looking for my subject. All right. We're going to talk about more of these later. They do come up, and so we are referencing them now. Some other words that'll come up as we talk about grammar are things like gerund, infinitive, and modifier. Gerund is the ing form of a verb. Analyzing, running, dreaming, singing. You simply take the root word of the verb and you add ing. Hating, growing, sailing, changing, tracking, fishing, writing, and washing. And then an infinitive is the verb form with the to in front. Those are ones that sometimes people have a hard time noticing in a sentence. To climb, to add, to swim, to believe, and to find. Then lastly, we have a modifier. A modifier is just an adjective or an adverb, and basically it's giving you more information or describing the subject, the verb, or the object. Okay, we will talk some more about all this stuff tomorrow. Try and get K1 done tonight. It's a pretty short one. Should be pretty easy to get finished. And we will be back here tomorrow at 10 o'clock and go back over our new stuff. Thank you so much for joining me today, and good luck with the assignment.